I think it is safe to say this Premier League season is not going how many people expected it to go. At this point of recording, Liverpool are currently top of the league, 5 points above Manchester City and 9 points off of Arsenal. So yes, I don't think anyone expects this from this Liverpool side this season, and in today's video we're going to explore why, how this has happened, and is it going to be the same moving forward. I think the main reason why this has been so shocking to people is based on Liverpool's situation at the start coming into this season. They didn't have a very good transfer window. They only really brought in Chiesa as a first team player, and he's been out injured. I think everyone was expecting that. He has the injury record of Jack Wilshere, so I don't think many people were surprised when they brought in a new goalkeeper, but that will be for when Alisson leaves. So many people came into this season were not expecting Liverpool to be where they are. A lot of people had them in a top 4 fight. Some people even went to say they're not even going to be in a title race this season. So they have surprised a lot of people, and I also think the fact that a big influence in that club, Jurgen Klopp, left at the end of last season, citing that he was tired, worn out, and he needed a break. So a lot of people after this were not expecting big things for Liverpool, which is one of the main reasons why. It's a bit of a surprise to see where they are right now. They've only lost 1 game, which was to Nottingham Forest, and they've won 9 games this season. So pretty strong stuff from a Liverpool side that we were not expecting, considering when you look back in time, big influences, managers that have been at a club a long time, like an Arsene Wenger or an Alex Ferguson. There has not been a very good transition there, especially when you think Man United haven't even reached the heights since 2013, since Alex Ferguson left, and they're still searching for a manager to replace him properly. It's been turbulent ever since, and the same with Arsene Wenger after leaving Arsenal. So it's never really clubs never really have a great time after a big influence leaves, and especially after Jurgen Klopp left. Everyone was expecting a bit of a downturn, but all credit to Liverpool. Arne Slot has come in and stabilised the ship in certain games. Let's be honest, they've looked better. They play a slow tempo, a lot slower level tempo of football these days. The gegenpress is not... there is still a pressing system now, I would say, but it's nowhere near as much. They look a lot more stable at the back. They have the best defensive record coming in this season. So Liverpool play a huge role in being where they are at the moment. I think their form at the start of the season is down to they've had a bit of an easier run. I think even Liverpool fans would say that, but you do have to beat who's in front of you, and they have looked imperious this season. Obviously, the only slip up coming against Nottingham Forest, who themselves are fighting for European football this season, which not a lot of people could say. And I think the fact that a lot of other teams like the Nottingham Forest, Fulham, even Chelsea are doing a lot better than what people expected. So it's kind of spread the points out a bit more evenly this season. But Liverpool are probably the only team really this season that are showing any level of consistency out of the top 6 sides. Tottenham have been up and down, and Arsenal, Man City, obviously, who we're going to go into as title rivals, have not been hitting the grade. They've not been playing fluid football that we're used to seeing, but I think there's also reasons for that. But yeah, Liverpool play a big role, obviously, being top of the league, being the only real consistent team in there. They also haven't faced as many injuries as the other top sides. They have faced some injuries, obviously the biggest one being Alisson, but Kelleher, everyone knows, is an absolute class goalkeeper. They haven't really missed him, I don't think, really. The amount of shots they're facing is not a great deal due to how good Konate and Van Dijk are. But the only thing I have put with Liverpool, they haven't gone through their dodgy patch. I think Man City, Arsenal are going through theirs right now. So it depends how bad their patch is that they continue this form with. And they haven't had the biggest of injuries, obviously. Jota, who is one of their biggest goal threats, but the fact that they have such good strong depth up there, like they have a Gakpo, they have a Darwin Núñez that they paid like 80 million euros for coming in behind. So I don't think Jota is as big a miss as many Liverpool fans say, but they've been absolute imperious. All credit goes to Arne Slot. As he said in interviews himself, he didn't actually change the system as much as people thought he was going to, but he definitely had some stability in there. Their possession stats are a lot better this season than compared to last season. They're not as front foot, but I think that is conserving energy, especially if you look at Liverpool at the back end of last season. They kind of fell off. At one point, they were about 5 points, 7 points ahead of Arsenal last season, but yeah, I think there has been slight signs of Liverpool, especially during the Arsenal game. Obviously, Arsenal at home, you expect Arsenal to pick up points in that game, but the tides really turned when Gabriel and Timber picked up those injuries. Probably Liverpool's worst game of the season was against Arsenal. Didn't really create many chances, so it's interesting to see how they do against these other top sides, as they haven't played many. They've played Liverpool and they've played Manchester United, who at that time were not a big side. They won 3-0 in that game, but Man United had some really good early chances, and they played against Chelsea, whereas I think Liverpool were the better team against Chelsea, and Chelsea have been a very good team this season, but it'd be interesting to see what Liverpool are like when, after this international break, they play a bit more tougher games, and let's see how they do. But been very impressed with Liverpool this season. They're going to stick it out to the end. We'll just have to see once they hit some turbulence, see how Arne Slot copes. I think another thing, the biggest miss in their transfer window was not buying a CDM, but I think Gravenberch coming in and actually playing at let's be honest, a very good to near world-class level so far this season. The last couple of games he has been a bit off it, but the fact that people were saying they weren't in a tight race purely because they didn't have a CDM, but Gravenberch has really stepped up. I do think they need some additions in January. I think January is going to be a big transfer window this season, as every single top side has some holes that they need redressing. But I think the fact that Gravenberch has stepped up and played a crucial role in that central midfield has been key. But yeah, been very impressed with Liverpool. But let's get on to Manchester City. So obviously the biggest talking point with Manchester City is there is no Rodri. It looks like they turned it into Rodri FC this season. They haven't had him. Their win rate without him is quite bad, to be honest with you. It's pretty much every single game he did play last season, he pretty much dropped points, apart from in a couple of games. And this season, the midfield is lackluster. There is just the lack of tempo, and I think on the ball they haven't been too bad. I think a midfielder, Bernardo Silva, with the Kovacic is in there. Nunes is in there. Bernardo Silva is very technically gifted. As you can see, the passing stats are still really good. They have a really good tempo in the midfield. It's when they're off the ball is Man City's major issues. They don't have that CDM. Recent transfer windows, they've tried addressing that position, but players they've brought in haven't been suitable. I think Gundogan was brought in to play sparing minutes this season, but he's starting to have to play all the time, which is why I think he looks so off the pace, because he wasn't brought in to play this amount of minutes, but he's had to. But yeah, without Rodri, without your main player in, it is an excuse for City, in my opinion. If you take the best player out of any side in world football right now, they're going to have a drop-off form. Look at Yamal at Barcelona, gets an injury, they lose straight away. So there is reasons for Man City's downfall. Their injury list has been appalling this season. But saying that, they're not creating. It's the second halves of games. They're playing really well in the first half, as they did against Sporting Lisbon, against Brighton. But they've just looked so timid without the ball. At the back, they've been lacklustre, they've been poor. Once again, they've had long-term injuries to centre-backs like Stones, Diaz. They've had a Pussy, a 9, I'm pretty sure he's a teenager anyway, a youngster playing at the back who's very inexperienced. So injuries have dealt City a big blow this season, but especially with players going out injured like the Kevin De Bruyne's. Phil Foden, the Premier League player of the season, we need to talk about, has just not stepped up this season. He's barely played any minutes. I think he's only started about 3 games this season, so he hasn't had a lot of football. He's been mostly coming off the bench after playing a lot of football last season. He's just looked off the pace so far. He has been good in spells, but the attacking output is not there. And if you look at Man City squads throughout the years, they've had such impact from wide areas. Players like Sane, Mahrez, who have left recently, the Sterlings, they used to create such pressure out wide and get so many goals spread across that front line. I think they have become heavily dependent on Erling Haaland for goals this season. Their second top goal scorer is their left back in Gvardiol. So I think there is a big issue with spreading the load. If Haaland doesn't score like he didn't do in consecutive games through this losing period, the first time they've lost 4 games since about 2008, the first time Pep Guardiola. So it is territory that Man City have never found themselves in before. But yeah, they need to find some other goals apart from Erling Haaland when he's on that goal drought. He is still top goal scorer, but it is largely from earlier parts of the season. He has been off it, but I think he will return to form. Once City start to get some of their injuries back, especially at the back, I think they will be a lot better. But they do need to go out in January and sign a Zubimendi type player to sit at the back. Obviously, they've tried addressing that in the past with Calvin Phillips. He's really not worked. That's why they've ended up moving him on. But uncharted territory right now for City. It'd be very interesting to see. They've come back from the break. They've got a particularly difficult game in Spurs. Their record at Spurs is not great. I do back them to win that game, especially because Spurs have been so up and down this season. They should really be getting the wins, but their form coming into the next season after the international break is a bit sketchy. But I do back City. They always turn up going into the back end of the season, but it is very much uncharted territory. We've never seen City without Rodri for this longer period of time, this amount of injuries, and this over-reliance on a striker is looking a bit dire at the moment. And let's be honest, maybe they're fatigued if you've won this many titles or breaking this many records, there is going to be a drop off at some point. Pep Guardiola just announced he's staying, extended his contract, but it is only for a year, which tells me that he's going to be gone fairly soon. He's probably going to stay that year, and it depends how this case goes. But you can see there's more pressure on City this season, I think, and they've just been a bit lacklustre, not playing their usual selves. But they're still getting their shots off. They're still creating chances. It's just they haven't got the goal scorers. I think Doku especially needs to step up. He's been here a year now. I think Savinho has been really good. At the start of the season, he's looked Mahrez-esque. He's just not got that goal return so far, but you've got to give him time. But Doku, I think more pressure needs to be put on Doku to be scoring some goals. His output has been really poor. Nicolas Pepe, Arsenal was known as a really big flop, but by now he had over 27 GA. Yeah, I think Doku really needs to step up and stop relying so much on Haaland. He's a world-class striker, but it can't be the only goal threat you have. It doesn't really look like they have a plan B at the moment, but they do have the ace up the sleeve, which is Pep Guardiola. Time and time again, he reinvents his system, just changes the formula in there, and I think City will be all right. But I think they're just going through their sticky patch right now, and as we've seen in most seasons, they have a very good back end of the season, so I think they will be straight back up there. Let's go for a bit of a rough patch. And the last team we talk about in today's video is Arsenal. So as an Arsenal fan, I'm going to try and not be as biased as possible. It's been an absolute rocky start. I think Arsenal statistically have had the hardest start out of all three of these sides, even in the top six. They've played a lot of games away from home. They've already played Man City away. They played Spurs away. They played Villa away. They've already played Liverpool. They've already played Chelsea. We're going into an easier run of fixtures. Nottingham Forest isn't the easiest team coming back, but you've got to trust Arsenal. Arsenal are a much better side than the teams they're facing after the international break, so Arsenal should be expected to pick up a lot of points. I think another glaring issue, as we said, the same with City, the injuries have really struck Arsenal this season. The last couple of seasons when Arsenal have gone for titles, they've been very fortunate with injuries, especially last season, but the season before, Saliba got injured, Arsenal fell off a cliff. They went without their best and most crucial creative asset, which is Ødegaard, which has shown the fact that he's been out since August and he's only just come back against Chelsea, and he has top of the chance created statistics, tells you all you need to know with this Arsenal team. Without him in there, they've just looked a bit lacklustre. They've been sitting a lot deeper to compensate for the lack of creativity in there. Marino hasn't really stepped up in the way, but he's not a creator the same as Ødegaard. He's not going to do that. He's been brought in as an 8, a box-to-box midfielder to sit alongside Declan Rice. He's not been brought in there, and Ranieri hasn't really been given a chance, so there's been great lack of creativity, as you've been seeing by players like Zinchenko coming off the bench to try and create a spark, but the tempo has not been there for Arsenal so far this season. But with Ødegaard coming back, I can only see Arsenal going back up this season. I think they've hit the lowest of the low they're going to get. Players like Saka have been out. The amount of defensive injuries, I think Arsenal's main bit of depth is defence, but defender after defender after defender getting injured. And I think, especially in games against Liverpool where you get Gabriel and Timber both come off that game, I think if they don't, Arsenal win that game, but you can't go by ifs at the moment. They're quite far behind. But if you look back to 1997-98, Arsenal have been this far behind before. As you can see from the table here, they were, after 18 games, they were 10 points behind and still came back to win that. So it is open. There are still chances to win this league. I think this season, I don't think anyone's notching 90 to 95 points this season. I think it's going to be a lot closer. But another issue Arsenal have had has definitely been a disciplinary record. They've had 3 red cards this season, more than any other side in the league. And I don't think it's necessarily just the red cards. It's the nature and the timing of the red cards. It's not even been like... it's been dirty tackles or anything like that. It's just been stupidity most of the time, and it's been whole halves of games. As you can see, most of the games it's been either just before halftime or just after halftime. Especially with the Trossard incident really early against Bournemouth, Saliba got sent off. It's just been stupidity really that's been a downfall so far. But yeah, I think Gary Neville's come out and said he still expects Arsenal to win the league this season, and then other pundits come out and go, I think it was Gary Lineker that said it was Arsenal have hit the lowest they're going to at the moment. They've had it as hard as possible. You should still be beating sides like Bournemouth really, and Newcastle away was awful. But yes, with Arsenal coming back, players coming back fit, Ødegaard back in the system, I think it should ease the burden a little bit more. A lot of Arsenal fans have been complaining that they need a striker, but let's be honest, Man City are in the mud at the moment, as well as Arsenal are, and they have a striker up top, and it's not solved the issue. That's not the issue for me. I don't think striker's issue. It's been the creativity side of things, feeding, because Havertz is very much a guy that puts himself about, but he's not been left up front because Odegaard's been injured. He's been having to drop deep. It'll be nice to see Kai Havertz stay up the top now that Odegaard is back, so we should see him back up top. If anything, Arsenal need a wide player. Martinelli and Trossard's out injured now. They've not been on it this season. I think Martinelli has been better this season scoring goals, but even in the Liverpool game, he has a chance to run at his defender. He loses the ball, goes straight back down. A beautiful pass by Trent, by the way, but Liverpool go and score straight away. So I think, if anything, Arsenal in January once again need to address the attacking areas, but I think a winger. I don't think Sterling has been utilised enough at all during this run. I think the vast Premier League experience he has, I think he should have probably started over Martinelli some games. Obviously, Trossard, since the Villa game, where he was impeccable to winning us the game, he's just been a bit sloppy. But once again, because Odegaard and other key players have been out injured, Arsenal have been asking these players to play out of position. It would be nice to see Arsenal return to a bit more attacking football now that they don't need to drop back as much with these red cards and these injuries. So I think, once again, Arsenal in a bit of an easier run of form. They still have the most assists for a player. Bukayo Saka has been crucial this season. He was a big miss in a couple of games. He's already on 7 assists this season. So I think Odegaard complements Saka really well. You can keep Kai Havertz up front. And let's be honest, earlier in the season, Arsenal were really good. They've been really good in glimpses against Liverpool and other teams like that. It's just been the performances like the Newcastle game, the Bournemouth game, where the outliers are. But yeah, I think coming into the end of the season, Arsenal is still in this title race. Man City is still in this title race. Liverpool will have a dodgy patch at some point in the season. They've just been the most consistent by far so far. But Man City and Arsenal have only lost 2 games this season. It's been really those draws and the drop points that have been bad for Arsenal. But once the injuries come back for Man City and for Arsenal, I think the title race will be a lot tighter. Obviously, Chelsea coming in at level points with Arsenal at the moment. They've been a lot better than what people think as well. Is it a new manager bounce for them? We'll see. But yeah, I think the fact that a lot of teams have been better this season, even in the mid-pack, you've still got Manchester United they're going to resurge under Ruben Amorim, so the points are going to be spread around much less. There's going to be a lot more games like the Arsenal-Chelsea game where it's better teams facing each other. It's going to be a lot closer this season. I don't think anyone's hitting 90 points this season. But yeah, I'm very intrigued to see how the end of the season goes. And I think it's probably going to be one of the more exciting Premier League seasons we're going to have. I think it's going to be a lot closer. There's not going to be 2 teams running away with it like we've had in the last couple of seasons. But yeah, let me know, guys, down in the comment section, who do you think is going to win the league? Is Man City and Arsenal going to come back up, or is Liverpool going to now coast it? It's going to be really interesting. Is Chelsea going to come up? Is United going to get top 4? I think United may fight for top 4. They're only 4 points off it at the moment. In my pre-season predictions, I said United will get top 4 after they sack Ten Hag. I'm going to stick by that. I think United and Chelsea will be fighting out for that as well. Tottenham have just been a bit lackluster, up and down for me so far, but because the middle of the pack and other teams have got a lot better, there's going to be less points to spread around. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to the rest of the season, and thank God the international break's coming to an end. But yeah, let me know in the comments, guys, if you like this video, and subscribe to the channel because we've got more football content coming up based on the Premier League, really, because that's what I watch. But yeah, thank you guys for checking out the video. I'll see you in the next one. TGFN, peace out.